folks. This is Paul Padda on Paul Padda Presents. We used to call it the Paul Padda Podcast, but we decided to change the name because I think Paul Padda Presents is closer to the purpose of the show, which is to put the spotlight on the guest. And today, Paul Padda presents Adam Ganz, who is a candidate for judge here in Las Vegas.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and the new logo
like
and the
logo?
new presentation. I'm excited about it.
So, Adam, I've known you both professionally and then just out and about. As someone for many years. When I moved to Las Vegas in 2004, but I knew of your reputation as a great attorney, and I know your former partner, Marjorie Hoff. You both had a firm together, and now you've retired since then, and you're running for judge. So I want my viewers to get to know you a little bit better on this show.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, thanks for having me. I am running for judge. I don't like to say that I retired. I like to say I was on a sabbatical.
Good point.
Just from the day-to-day operations. As
You're
you
too
and
young to retire.
I know. And plus, with our personalities, as you know, we can't sit still and always want to do something. So, to be honest, when I took my sabbatical about a year and a half ago, Marjorie bought me out, and I went back to school, believe it or not. So I'm actually literally just finished up my LLM about a week or two ago.
You're like a Renaissance man.
Went back to school after about 25 years of practicing civil litigation. I get my LLM in dispute resolution and conflict and dispute resolution over at Pepperdine University.
Oh, that's great.
And I've been teaching over at UNLV and been volunteering down at the Neighborhood Justice Center doing some mediations and different things. So, like I said, I don't think the retired I think is too strong a word for what I've been doing over the last year and a half or so, but I've definitely
transitioned.
I transitioned. That's a great way to say it.
You're transitioning to a new phase in your professional
That's a great
career.
great way to say it. And the reason why I went back to law school to get my LLM was really to transition into that advocate role to a neutral role, which is where I hope to be come November in the election and when I become a judge next year.
So what made you think about becoming a judge?
Well, it's something I've always wanted to do. I grew up in this community, and it's a community I really want to give back to. And the only way
I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you born and raised here?
I was not born and raised here. I moved here when I was about 2 or 3 years old, so I've been here most of my life.
That's pretty much the same thing.
I call myself a lifelong Las Vegas resident. I went to elementary school, and I think I just posted today. I saw my one of my A-frame signs that I have going up now, and I saw it literally posted about a quarter mile away from where I went to elementary school. As I'm driving around town, just going to pick up something. So
very cool.
It was kind of cool to do that. So I went to elementary school here, and I went to high school here. I left home when I was about 15 and a half.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bonanza High School.
Okay,
because
I learned having moved to Las Vegas.
Very important.
Where you go to high school is like a big deal.
Very important. Very important. So when I was in high school, I left home when I was about 15 and a half, and I couch surfed for a while at some friends' houses and worked overnight at the Food for Less. And,
your parents were okay with that, or
it was one of those things. My parents, and one of the reasons I got into the law. It's kind of a longer story, but one of the reasons I got into law. My parents owned a restaurant here in town. It was a Jewish delicatessen on the west side of town, like Spring Mountain and Jones. That was the west side back then.
Cool.
But so they owned this place called the Fiddler on the Roof, and they actually put a big mannequin, big fiddler up on top of the roof. And unfortunately, not only was that a symbol of what they wanted to do, but it was also a symbol of a lot of hate that we had. We had a lot of issues with the actual mannequin itself. But regardless of that, the business went under after about a year, and my parents, the family relationship as I know it, also deteriorated greatly after that because of the litigation that went over it.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that led me into law, honestly, is because I saw how unfair it was to people who didn't have a lot of money and did not have a lot of resources to be able to fight certain things. So that kind of led me into law in the first place.
That's an amazing story, actually. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a good story, to talk about now. Obviously, it was difficult to talk about then. I have reconciled with my parents. My mom, unfortunately, passed away a while ago, and my dad's still around. He comes out, and he and I, we were talking about the different sporting teams out here off camera, but my dad and I love to go to the Raiders games together and go down to the hockey games and stuff together. So it's so he and I have reconciled. It's a good end to the story, but
that's a really interesting. That story actually highlights something that I think about a lot. Is like we pay so much attention in our society, and it's true everywhere else, but certainly in Nevada where you have an elected judiciary, everyone focuses on the big races. Well, big races in the sense of U.S. Senate, a congressperson, but the average person's life is actually more impacted and affected by who sits on the bench.
Yes.
Because people either have civil disputes, they have some encounter with the criminal justice system, maybe something as simple as a traffic ticket.
Right.
But who is on the bench as a judge, I think, really is more impactful in most people's lives necessarily than even some of these other offices.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And on a day-to-day basis, usually somebody is calling, you know this, friends or family members will call you all the time with just a little different things that may end up into litigation at some point in time.
Yeah.
So people are calling lawyers all the time. They don't always end up in litigation, which is good. But it is certainly important to make sure that we have good judges on the bench, good judges with experience. And certainly I think that even what you mentioned, one of the things that's really important about this particular race is that I'm civilly trained. I've done civil litigation most of my career. My two opponents have only done criminal law. And people think, well, there's a lot of crimes that are happening out there and you know, and that kind of stuff, which is true. But people don't know that 2/3 of the cases that are filed in Clark County are civil. And only 1/3 is criminal.
That's true.
So the reality is we need twice as many judges, and we had a big influx in 2020 of a number of criminally trained judges that are up there. So they don't really understand the civil aspect. Let me give you an example. I'm sure you've had the same experience yourself.
Yeah.
There was an issue with regards to a qualified immunity, and qualified immunity is a very complex issue.
It is.
Whether or not somebody can sue a government entity and whether or not a person who's working for a government entity has immunity for their actions that they're doing. And there's a lot of different ways that can come into play in people's lives and they don't realize it.
Well, the most common example is the police, right?
Correct.
I mean, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. If they're working within the course and scope of their employment, if they're doing stuff, they may have certain qualified immunity for certain things. Obviously, you and I both know sometimes they cross over that line, and someone needs to hold them accountable. But in most instances, people don't realize that government officials do have a qualified immunity. Anyway, I argued in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals of qualified immunity. I've argued in Nevada Supreme Court. I well understood the area of qualified immunity. Right after that last election in 2020 and in January of 2021, I had a big issue against a contractor and one of the state boards with regards to a road construction where somebody was really badly injured because of the way this road. As a matter of fact, it was a girl who died crossing the street on Blue Diamond. And qualified immunity came up in that particular issue. And I studied for probably 20 or 30 hours preparing for this motion. I go in front of this judge who I respect the process and I completely understand that she won the election against this other individual. And she was a judge, and she's got all the power and authority to do that. But I get up there, and I prepared for 30 hours. She's done criminal law all her life, never once even heard of qualified immunity, let alone, trying to get up to speed. And I felt bad for her. Yeah. I felt bad that she got put into that position because she's now doing an area of law that she's got no clue on, and she's making very vital decisions about you and I when you're making those decisions. So, and not to say that she's not going to be a good judge someday, but certainly there's a little bit of a problem with the judge deciding an issue of that magnitude on day one, and that's how they get thrown into it, unfortunately. So
that's true. No, I to be honest, this is one area I think that if people really understood, and if once they go to court, they have an experience with the court system, their frustration, whether they're a business owner, whether you've been injured, I think that's when it really hits home to people that, oh my goodness, these judges have tremendous power and authority, and that's
and it affects them on a day-to-day basis, like you said.
On a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis. So even that particular issue, you may not know about it, you may not hear about it, but to know that your roads are being built safe, that was an issue of very important magnitude to a lot of people in that area. Go ahead.
So, Adam, one of the things I find fascinating about your candidacy and your background is that you have such a wealth of experience, and I say that literally because it's true. You were a partner in a law firm, a well-known firm with a gentleman named Robert Vanna, who is I would say sort of like the godfather of personal injury law, right, in this state.
I don't know if I'd use that terminology, but
maybe you may not like that phrase.
It's certainly he was one of the first to.
He was a well-known attorney, though.
Well, he loved to try cases.
Yes,
and he still tries cases, and he was a great. And still is a great trial attorney.
And you were a partner there, and then you left and started your own firm.
I did. My law clerk, who was going to school full-time at UNLV, was in the very first graduating class at UNLV, and Marjorie Hoff is her name. And,
we know Marjorie very well. She's a great lawyer,
She's a great lawyer, and she was somebody perfect for me to partner up with. Yeah. We had some things over at Vanna's office that we didn't like the way things were being managed. as far as the top down. Basically, I didn't get to try as many cases.
Yeah.
Bob liked to try everything. Marjorie and I wanted some more experience. We wanted a little bit more control over our own lives. So we went ahead and we opened up our own place, and we were together for almost 15 years up until recently.
I think for a lot of viewers out there who are not lawyers, I think what would be interesting, you are a business owner.
Yes.
You sign both sides of the check.
Yes.
You know the stress and the struggles of being a business owner, trying to make payroll.
Yep.
And so bringing that experience to the bench, along with being a plaintiff's attorney, I think it gives you tremendous balance and insight.
And it definitely gives you a different perspective,
Right.
not only understanding an employee side of it, but also an employer side of it, as well as I've been on the boards of directors for several nonprofit boards in town. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things I've done in that nature as well. So I understand how to run a business. I've had other businesses as well besides just the practice at Marjorie. So
from my perspective as an attorney looking at you, and I think you have you are eminently qualified to be a judge, and I think you'd be a great judge.
You keep saying that, and you're starting to make me blush a little bit.
I mean it, though. I mean,
you know, coming from you, that really, I mean, honestly, that means a lot. I really do. I do appreciate that.
So the natural question, though, is a guy with your experience, are you going to get a little bored being a judge? I mean, you've been such a great advocate. You've tried cases. You've tried really high-stake cases. You've gotten great results in the courtroom. Now you have to go from being the guy on the court or the field to being the referee.
Sure.
How are you going to make that adjustment?
First of all, there's a lot you can do on the bench behind the scenes to help the process out. I heard the other day there was some discussion about jury questionnaires, and there's a bit of a conflict now about how to better manage jurors when they come in, because people hate to go to jury duty.
Yes.
I mean, you get those calls just like I do and go, how do I get out of jury duty? And I said, you called the wrong person, because I'm going to tell you how you need to get into jury duty, because we need it more. But most people want to get out of jury duty. I understand that, but the question is, how do we make it better for them and also better for the attorneys? And one of those ways, I think, is we can come up with a jury questionnaire that they can do from home. They can do it electronically, and that'll save them some time down there. Some people may get excluded before they even come down, and then they get thrown back in the pool again for another 18 months. And
so for our non-lawyer viewers, what's the purpose of a questionnaire, and why is that a beneficial thing?
Yeah, so right now, if you get a jury summons, you'll call up the night before, do I have to go to jury service? They'll tell you, yes, you have to come down. You go down, you wait in a big room where you watch a couple of videos. It tells you what jury service is about, and you usually wait for a long time. Yeah. You may get to a courtroom later on that day. If you do, it may be a courtroom that lasts for a week, 3 days, or may last for 3 months. Yeah. Some trials, honestly, can go up to a year here in town, and it's the same jury pool. So when you get into that room, the first question they ask is, do you have any concerns about serving this length of time? Sometimes people in the shorter trials don't say much, but in the longer trials, a week, 2 weeks, it's a huge burden on people. So jury questionnaire, just as one example of how something I think that could help the system, is we can get people before they even come down, get them to fill out a basic jury questionnaire to say what their problems with the conflict are. They can find out how long the trial is going to be, and they can then be excluded before they even come down there. Save them the time, save the court the time.
It's a benefit to the public,
exactly,
actually.
And the court system. It's going to weed some people out before you even get down there. That's just one example of one of the questions they can ask in a jury questionnaire to really help everybody out. So
what other kind of things would you bring to the bench that you've seen as an attorney that would really improve the system?
Well, first thing is, I believe that managing your docket is something that, number one, in the civil system needs to be done. I've had cases that lasted, 11, 12, 14 years in some instances that just go on and on and on. Yeah. Longer than some people, some of your viewers have even been in town, I imagine. So the reality is that we need to manage our dockets, and we need to make sure they're moving along. And the way to do that is to make sure that you're holding trials, being there for trials. A lot of judges decide they want to take, nights and weekends off, and that's not something I want to do. I really want to get in here and help clear out the civil docket. So that's one of the things I'm going to do, and that's one of the things I think I can do to help.
That's great. Your passion definitely comes through, and I think that's huge. I also think that, there are people on paper who look great in terms of whether they would make a good judge or not, or people make assessments like, well, this person's been practicing law for this many years. But I think that, and some of that is important. What I've observed, though, is there is something called the judicial demeanor or temperament, and I do think that's important. Sure. And I think that having a sense of empathy is really important. And I've seen certain judges that I've seen who have a lot of empathy, and that doesn't mean that you bend the rules or something. That just means that you understand, kind of like you have a greater dimension in terms of depth of looking at life, right? And
yeah, absolutely. And the training that I've been doing with this, master's in law in in dispute and conflict resolution is really getting to the interest of the parties.
Yeah.
Empathy is number one thing, and the first thing that we learn is there's a difference between empathy and sympathy.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
That's right.
Being sympathetic for somebody is not in the place for the courtroom, but being empathetic and understanding a person's plight and understanding where they're at, making sure they get a fair and just trial is a different story. So to me, a lot of the training that I've done over the last several, and they call it a practice law for a reason, right? Because we're continuing learning things, right? So I ultimately got a real good dose of that over the last 2 years by being the neutral, by trying to understand and get into those underlying interests of people, especially when you're trying to settle a case or resolve a case, as opposed to advocating for somebody. And I've really, I believe, changed hats in that sense to be able to do that over the last couple of years.
Oh, that's that's good insight. So let's talk a little bit going back to your background.
Sure.
You are a guy who grew up here. When you look around Vegas today, what do you think? I mean, did you ever think that we would have the Raiders or any type of professional sporting team here?
Well, I could tell you that, being from Las Vegas, I teach over at UNLV now, and one of my students came in who just moved here and called it Nevada. I can't even say it wrong now, but Nevada, I think is what she said. And I said, no, you're living here now. It's Nevada. Everybody, you got to understand that. And growing up here and having such a deep roots here, I am thrilled that we're getting the type of recognition that we deserve in the sporting area with the Raiders and so on and so forth. And people even say to me, "You're a Raiders fan now?" And I say, "Well, yeah, I'm a Vegas fan.
There you go.
And I bleed Vegas.
That's
if
right.
they're going to come here and play here, I'm gonna go ahead and support them, just like I support the Knights. I support the Aviators.
I used to be a Chicago Bears fan. You know, I grew up watching Walter Payton and some of those great athletes, but. Hey, you got to be a Raiders fan now.
If you're out here, you got to be a fan. I mean, obviously, if the Bears come out here, we'll give you a benefit of the doubt and let you wear a jersey underneath.
All right, absolutely.
But if you come to a Raiders game, you better wear the Raiders
gear,
right?
Silver and
again, we have to support our community, and that's just one way to do it. I mean, through those events, the amount of revenue that we're generating for the people in our community, between the vendors, between the people coming in town to watch the games, I just think it's wonderful that we're getting that kind of recognition. So,
that's true. That is really true.
And we're gonna have a Super Bowl here soon too.
That is amazing.
Blow us away, right?
It's happening all so quickly. I can't even imagine. Since I moved here in 2004, just the time I've been in this town, the transition I've seen is incredible. I mean,
makes you worried a little bit when they start talking about the A's, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
A huge Padre fan. Don't hold that against me, but a huge Padre fan. But if we get the A's, we'll be able to support it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another team where it's a day-to-day thing.
Right.
It works great with hockey because hockey literally starts when baseball's over, and of course football's only a few games. So I think it might be able to work, and I certainly would welcome another team here.
Well, I've heard they're talking about putting it on the Strip. I wonder what that's going to do to traffic as well. I get why they would want that because of the hotels, but I don't know.
They said the same thing about the Raiders too, and I have no problem getting in and out of those games.
That is true, actually. I didn't think that was going to work, but it seems to. It
seems to work fine.
Pretty easy. Yeah.
I've heard some people having some complaints about it, but I mean, even the Knights. I mean, I can get from the Knights to my house in 20 minutes, and I live in the Northwest. I mean, so it's they'll figure it out.
That's true.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I think it's great for the community. On top of the fact that our conventions are growing, our housings are growing. I mean, we're continuing to grow as a community. We're also getting more and more cultural things here in town, which I think are great. We were talking about downtown a little bit earlier, and there's all different kinds of things downtown that are really starting to attract people. So I think it's really good.
So, like, one of the things I'm going to ask you, because you essentially are a native, you grew up here. What do you think makes Vegas such a special city? And I'll preface that by saying, when people come here, I think they're kind of surprised at how small it really is, comparatively to the name. Like when you go anywhere in the world, China, India, Mexico, somewhere, and you tell people, I'm from Las Vegas, everybody immediately knows what that is. They have some idea of what that might look like. And then, so it just holds this place in people's kind of, I think, imagination. But there's an ethos to this city. I think that's really interesting. What do you think makes Vegas so special?
That's a great way to think about it. I think it is a microcosm of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It gives people the opportunity to come here at any point in time, be able to start in a new career, either in the in the construction or whether it's in the casino industry or whatever it might be able to start in there and build a great life. I mean, my parents came here when I was a few years old to be in the casino industry. My dad worked in the casinos forever as a supervisor. He was at the Silver Slipper and then the Dunes and then the Mirage and ultimately went across the country in casinos. My mom worked as in the casino business as well as a cocktail waitress in the culinary union for decades. And I think that, they wanted a better life for their kids. And I think that's a microcosm of what we want for our kids in our United States. I mean, that's why people come to the United States, because they want a better life. I think they get a part of that here in Vegas. I really do.
That's a great answer, and I think that's a very insightful, and I definitely agree with that. You go to certain cities like Boston, Chicago, you're talking 5-6 generations back. Right. People are very entrenched. This is truly a welcoming town. You can come here just by your sheer work ethic, effort. You can really make a name for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it happen for myself, but it's that's what I love about this town.
Yeah. And then I can walk down the street and see a poster for somebody I went to high school with, or into at a Knights game or a UNLV game, or even at the supermarket, I'll see people that I went to high school with.
Yeah.
It's that small a town too.
It is that small. Town.
So it's got that feel to where you can still have that sense of community with it as well. So it really is a great place to live and grow up. I came back here. They didn't have a law school. When I went away to law school, they didn't have a law school here, so I had to go away to law school, and I moved back here to start a practice, and I did about almost 25 years ago, and that's when I got married and began a family out here at the same time I started my practice out here. So I can tell you from my experience, it's a very small legal community as well.
Yes, that's true.
There's still people who've been in the bar for 40, 50 years that you still see. I saw, George Pachanis, a good friend of mine who just saw the other day, and just saw this morning, and you'll see different people around town. So it's
welcoming.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of camaraderie among the bar, which I really like. I coming from other cities, I practice law in Washington, D.C., and it's a little impersonal. I mean, there's so many lawyers that the joke is that Washington is Hollywood for the ugly people, because they're all just lawyers. It's
I've never heard
boring
that before.
lawyers, but you can't walk 5 feet without bumping into an attorney in Washington.
I bet.
But what really struck me about Las Vegas is, yes, what you said is how small the legal community is, but the congeniality, the camaraderie, and especially for those of us on the plaintiff side,
no doubt about it,
even more so.
Yeah, it's great to know that if you got a problem, you can call up somebody, your senior that's been practicing a longer, or even someone less, and call them up as, hey, you got a form for this, or hey, have you ever heard of this person before?
Yes.
They're very, very welcoming. People will bend over backwards. I mean, I remember going to different people's courtrooms, and they got a trial coming up, and just kind of strategizing with them. And the same thing that people did for me, back in the day. In our legal community, there was the Pat Murphys and the Mitch Kobiegas of the world that I used as a mentor in that case.
Oscar Goodman.
Oscar Goodman is another one, right?
I still remember when I was in D.C., I was an attorney, and I was a much younger attorney, but I was sitting there watching television, and I see this guy come on, and it's Oscar Goodman.
Yeah.
And he was such a colorful character. Yeah. And I knew about his background. He had a very illustrious career. And so it was kind of weird, like, how when you move to a place and you meet somebody who you perceive as a celebrity.
It's almost like starstruck,
so when I first met him, and he was exactly the same person.
You'll still see him over at Bagel Cafe eating all the time. I just saw him over at a restaurant the other day having lunch with somebody, and I went to Hebrew school with his son, Eric, who's a judge also.
Oh, he's great. Eric is
so, it's that kind of small town where you do see those people around for sure. So
that is the essence of Vegas.
Yeah, and again, I think that our legal community is small enough. People don't realize how really tight-knit our legal community is, especially in certain areas like the civil community. I know I've had such great support from people in the civil community, and knowing that, both sides, whether it's plaintiff or defense work, knowing that I'm going to be a good judge up there one day for them. So
I know you're going to be a great judge, and I've seen you in action, and I've seen your work history, things you've done, people you've represented, the passion you bring. I really think you would be a welcome addition to the bench.
And I've handled all different kinds of cases too. You know that. I mean, all the way from, I've handled some of the family law stuff back in the day, which I wouldn't be doing in this particular arena, but I've handled cases, against helicopter companies.
Yeah,
complicated
issues.
Yeah, where, litigation spans $1 billion corporations, whether it be a helicopter or a spin bike or whatever it might be. But I've dealt with cases of all different character for all different kinds of people, always welcoming. And I've tried probably 50 to 75 jury trials in this arena, which is quite a bit for our community.
That is a lot,
because you can't really get that many cases that go to trial.
It's getting harder.
Cases. It is. It's getting better now. Yes. I'll tell you, after COVID, it seems like the floodgates are opening up. talking to my former partner still and trying to help her out with some of her cases coming up, the cases that I worked on. And I know that she's probably tried 6 or 7 cases this year already, which is quite a bit, only for about being halfway or so done in the year. So.
That's so true.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, this was a really engaging conversation. I enjoyed it. And I'm glad people were able to get to know you better. If they want to learn more and go to your website, where would they go?
Yeah, it's www.gans4judge.com.
So and Ganz is spelled G-A-N-Z, right?
G-A-N-Z, for judge. I'm not wearing my name badge today. Normally I have it on. I apologize. Ganz for judge, G-A-N-Z, 4judge.com. Awesome. I got a whole bio on my history. You can find more about me there, my family, and everything.
Adam, it's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Folks, this is another episode of Paul Padda Presents, and today we presented Adam Ganz for Judge. Please go to his website, check it out. This is definitely someone you want to give a very close look to. Me personally, I am definitely supporting him. I think he's a phenomenal candidate and will make an awesome judge when he's elected to our Clark County District Court. Thank you for watching, and until next time, be safe and take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, man.
All right.
All right, good.